and there's still this increased need. And with the reconciliation bill, we'll see increased pressure on food banks.
Well, Brian, this is a great time to turn to you. I'd love to hear how these cuts are affecting your food bank.
Yeah. Well, Houston is just one of 250 Feeding America food banks around the country. We're all pretty much seeing the same thing. In our case, the cuts work out to about 40 tractor-trailer loads per month of USDA commodities that we won't be receiving. And as we work with our 1,600 partners, serving about 1 million people a year, that's a really big hit. And it's causing a lot of pain for the people that we serve. And at the food bank level, we're having to make adjustments. Now, this is in addition to the loss of funding that we were able to purchase from local farmers and other local agribusiness, which was a really neat initiative, a great partnership. So we have that reduction, and then we have funding reduction of over $3 million just to help pay operating costs. So in so many ways, we're struggling. And at the same time, there are more people who are food insecure. This is just the cruel irony of this is it's not pandemic driven. It's that with rising, not just food costs, but rent costs, et cetera, is eaten into the wage gains that households had. So there are simply more families who are struggling. And because food tends to be the flexible expense, that's where they take the hit because they have to pay all their rent. They have to pay all their utility bills. So where do they make the cuts? It's in food. That's where we try to step in, but the resources to do that are being cut significantly.
Well, we're also hearing from other food bank workers about how these cuts are affecting them. Here's Markel Miller with food gatherers at the food bank in Michigan.
The cut to USDA food represents an abrupt loss of 15% of our food distribution, or the equivalent of 1.2 million meals. This USDA food was a reliable source of American agricultural products, many of which come from Michigan producers. The food we get from the USDA is distributed throughout our community at shelters, food pantries, meal programs, and grocery distributions at affordable housing sites and schools. We know that many of our neighbors facing food insecurity also have diet-related illnesses. The USDA was a source of really healthy food, and now we must raise a lot more money to try to replace what we lost without any heads up.
Brian, we hear there from Markel that they didn't have a heads up about these cuts. How did the federal government let you know about the changes?
Well, these happen in very rapid manner. And to me, it was like kind of we've had hurricanes down here and there's incomplete information and it's changing every day. And that's kind of what this was like. I think they did their best, but they were having to make cuts rapidly and make adjustments to those. And so, the communication was not ideal.
So big picture, Brian, how are you adjusting to the cuts and what does it mean for the people who you're trying to support?
Well, the way food banks are is we mostly get surplus food from the food industry. We are kind of the scramblers that try and make good what can't be sold. And the USDA commodities are really a component of that because so much of that is the government stepping in to help support farms with their surplus. And it comes to us in great condition, and we just absolutely love the USDA commodities. With those cuts, we're having to make, of course, significant decreases in how much we distribute. We are laying off over 40 people, and we're having to communicate to all of our partners that we're trying to make these cuts as evenly as we can, which is difficult to do because we can't just have the trucks run 80% full. So instead, it's getting a little bit clunky, so there are a lot of canceled distributions that we're having to do, and this is letting down a lot of families who depend on us. And we're hoping that we can somewhat stabilize our routes and our procedures and then push more and more towards fresh produce, but there's no way that we can make up this difference.
Let's pause here. What other changes are happening at the USDA? That's next.
This message comes from Charles Schwab. When it comes to managing your wealth, Schwab gives you more choices, like full-service wealth management and advice when you need it. You can also invest on your own and trade on Think or Swim. Visit schwab.com to learn more. This message comes from MIDI Health. If you're a woman over 40 dealing with hot flashes, insomnia, weight gain, or brain fog, you don't have to accept it as just another part of aging. The clinicians at MIDI Health understand what you're experiencing and know how to help. MIDI Health provides specialized care for perimenopause and menopause covered by insurance. Book your visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com. This message comes from Greenlight. Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/NPR.
This message comes from Bluehost. Bluehost can make building a great website easy and offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. Customize and launch your site in minutes with AI, then optimize with built-in search engine tools. Get your great site at Bluehost.com.
Let's get back to our discussion with this message we got from one of you. Lisa writes, I'm a libertarian, so I believe in personal freedom and personal responsibility. I don't think it's healthy for our society to have people dependent on the government, and I don't like tax money being spent this way when we have a huge national debt. Families, churches, and local charities should help the truly needy. Brian, I'd love to get your response to that as someone who's working on the ground with people who are food insecure.
You know, that is a very good point that our friend makes. But I want to also point out that, you know, the scale for us to do that is not what people think. So if you look at SNAP compared to the output of all the food banks put together, SNAP is actually 9 times as large. So just an 11% cut in SNAP is financially the equivalent of wiping out every food bank in America. And it's my understanding that that's what's coming out of the House is cuts that are actually larger than that. The reality is the charitable sector in America is amazing, but no, there is no way that we can make up that kind of difference. And the partnership that USDA and the food banks have had for years, which we love, has been great for American farms, which helps stabilize agribusiness in the United States. This is one of the reasons why we're so good at that, where food is comparatively so low cost in the U.S. compared to most of the world relative to income. Because of that partnership, we're able to help people, but mostly what we're trying to do is hope that people have the resources on their own, just as I think the caller does. And that's where I think SNAP really helps make that happen.
Well, and Lisa also refers to helping the truly needy. Who typically accesses your food bank in Houston?
Yeah, that's another thing that a lot of people don't know, and it's a reasonable question, is, well, who is this? Are these people who are unemployed and, you know, could be working? Overwhelmingly, who we're serving is actually households that are working and have children. So the Census Bureau, in their annual ACS study, they find that about 2/3 of the food insecure households have an adult who works. Low-wage employment has become the #1 enemy for food security in America. And that's who we're going to, is people who, you know, the households are struggling, they're working, but they're not making enough money to consistently make ends meet. And so food tending to be the flexible expenses where they take the hit. And so that's who's coming to the churches and the other organizations that we supply to try and get some help.
Well, this morning, House Republicans advanced a far-reaching bill to support the Trump administration's agenda. And in that bill, there are some deep cuts to the SNAP benefits program. It heads to the Senate next. Here's Terry Shoemaker, the executive vice president of the Arizona Food Bank Network, who called us last night before passage of the bill this morning, talking about what these cuts in particular could mean for their network.
The current House budget proposal, if passed, would be devastating for Arizona food banks and the more than 700,000 people who are relying on them for help each month. And that's for a couple of different reasons. The way SNAP cuts are being proposed, especially because of the expanded work requirements, would mean that, you know, for example, a 63-year-old grandfather who helps take care of his grandson so that his daughter can work full-time would have to find and maintain a 20-hour-a-week job in order to keep his SNAP benefits, even though he's already providing free labor. And it also means fewer groceries and more stress for families that are already living on the edge. And that means more people will need help from food banks.
Marcia, give us more detail about how SNAP benefits